Chapter 31, Shen Yu's Cultivation. The moment Kai's foot touched the deck of the ark, he felt a subtle shift in the ambient qi. It was as if the air around them had been brought to life. He glanced at Li Wei, wondering if his companion had noticed the change. Judging by the wide-eyed look on Li Wei's face, he had. "Impressive, isn't it?" Elder Feng said, a hint of pride in his voice. "This ark is infused with wind and water-attributed spirit stones. It can cover vast distances in a fraction of the time it would take to travel on foot." Gigi, still sat on Li Wei's head, snorted. "I've seen faster. Why, in my younger days, I once rode a bolt of lightning across half the continent." Kai suppressed a smile. "I really need to get the full story behind Gigi sometime. His backstory keeps getting more and more ridiculous." As Shen Yu boarded the ark, Kai watched him closely. The boy's movements were smooth and graceful, betraying a level of body control that seemed at odds with his apparent lack of cultivation. Another anomaly, Kai thought. His stats say he's just a normal mortal, but he moves like a trained martial artist. "What's your deal, Shen Yu?" Once everyone was aboard, Elder Feng made a series of complex hand gestures. The ark shuddered slightly, then began to rise into the air. Li Wei gasped, clutching the railing. We are flying." "Of course we are," Gigi said, rolling his eyes. "Did you expect us to sail through the trees?" Kai placed a hand on Li Wei's shoulder. "It's okay, Li Wei. This is perfectly normal for cultivators. Just think of it as an extremely smooth carriage ride." As the ark ascended above the treetops, Kai took a moment to survey their surroundings. The village looked tiny from this height, a cluster of buildings nestled in a sea of grain. In the distance, he could make out the faint outline of mountains, their peaks shrouded in mist. "So that's where we're headed," Kai mused. "The Azure Sky sect is probably located on one of those peaks. It looks so close but is actually so far away, classic Xianxia style." Elder Feng's voice broke through Kai's thoughts. "Young cultivators, our journey will take several hours. I suggest you use this time wisely. For those of you who have already begun your cultivation journey, quiet meditation would be appropriate." The outer elder's gaze settled on Shen Yu. "As for you, young man, I believe it's time you learned the basics of qi sensing and gathering. Come, sit with me." Kai watched with interest as Shen Yu moved to sit cross-legged in front of Elder Feng. The boy's face remained impassive, but Kai thought he detected a flicker of something in his eyes. Anticipation? Or was it recognition? This should be interesting, Kai thought. Let's see how an expert teaches the basics and how a mysterious friend here reacts. Elder Feng smiled at Shen Yu. "Now then, young one. Before we begin gathering qi, you must first learn to sense it. Your body can already feel qi, but your mind needs to recognize and interpret those sensations." Shen Yu nodded. There was no hint of the nervousness or excitement one might expect from a complete novice. "Close your eyes," Elder Feng instructed. "Take a deep breath and try to feel the world around you. Don't focus on what you can hear or smell. Instead, try to sense the energy that flows through all things." Shen Yu obeyed, his eyelids sliding shut as he took a deep breath. His posture was perfect, Kai noticed, as if he'd sat in meditation 1,000 times before. "Good," Elder Feng continued. "Now, I'm going to release a small amount of qi. Try to feel it with your mind, not your body." Kai watched as Elder Feng extended his hand, palm facing Shen Yu. A faint, barely visible shimmer appeared in the air between them. "Do you feel anything?" Elder Feng asked. "Yes," Shen Yu said simply. "I can sense it clearly." Elder Feng's eyebrows rose slightly. "Oh? That's quite impressive for a first attempt. Can you describe what you're sensing?" "It's like a gentle current," Shen Yu replied, his eyes still closed. "Warm and flowing, but intangible. It reminds me of sunlight on water." That's an oddly poetic description for someone who's supposedly never sensed qi before, Kai thought. Elder Feng seemed equally surprised but quickly composed himself. "Well done, Shen Yu. You have a natural talent for this. Now that you can sense qi, we can move on to gathering it." The elder's voice took on a more instructional tone. "Qi gathering is the foundation of all cultivation. First, I want you to focus on your breathing and imagine a warm light at the center of your body, behind your navel. This is your dantian, the core of your qi. Shen Yu nodded, his breathing steady and rhythmic. As you breathe in, Elder Feng continued, imagine you're drawing in the qi you can now sense from the world around you. It enters through your nose, flows down to your dantian, and makes that light grow. As you breathe out, let that energy circulate through your body. As Kai watched, he saw a faint shimmer begin to form around Shen Yu almost immediately. It was subtle, but to Kai's trained senses, it was unmistakable. That's not normal, Kai thought, his mind racing. Even a prodigy shouldn't be able to gather qi this quickly on their first try. Elder Feng's eyes widened, a look of astonishment crossing his face. Shen Yu, this is remarkable. You're already beginning to circulate qi. Can you feel it? Yes, Shen Yu replied calmly. It's moving in a circular path, just as you described. From the dantian, up the spine, over the head, down the front, and back to the core. Elder Feng seemed at a loss for words for a moment. That's correct. The microcosmic orbit. But how did you? Shen Yu opened his eyes, his gaze meeting Elder Feng's. It just felt natural, he said, his voice neither boastful nor apologetic. Natural? There's nothing natural about this. Either Shen Yu is the biggest cultivation prodigy I've ever seen, or... A message flashed before Kai's eyes. Shen Yu. Level, Qi Refining Stage 1. Qi, 10/10. Strength, 15. Agility, 15. Endurance, 15. Skills, Basic Qi Circulation. Or he really isn't what he seems, but whatever he is, Shen Yu just became the most interesting person on this boat. Suddenly, Shen Yu's eyes darted across the horizon, his usual calm demeanor was tinged with a hint of tension. We should be careful, he said quietly. Kai raised an eyebrow. Oh? Why's that? Instead of answering, Shen Yu just shook his head slightly. Kai frowned. Something about Shen Yu's warning set off alarm bells in his mind. He decided to check his map. His eyes widened as he noticed 3 large red spots appear on the map, moving rapidly towards their position. What the hell? Kai thought. Those can't be good. Before he could voice his concerns, the boat suddenly rocked violently. Something large whooshed past, barely missing them. What was that? Li Wei cried out, stumbling to keep his balance. The boat rocked again as another shape flew by. And then a third time. Kai gripped a railing, his mind racing. 3 fast-moving objects. Big enough to shake the boat. Just what kind of beasts are we up against? As if in answer to his thoughts, 3 massive winged creatures burst into view. They circled the ark, their powerful wings creating gusts of wind that buffeted the small vessel. Kai's eyes widened as he took in their appearance. Each beast was easily the size of a small house, with wings spanning at least 30 feet. Their bodies were covered in scales that shimmered in the sunlight. One drake was a deep blue. Another was a vibrant green. The last one, larger than the others, had rich purple scales. Great, Kai thought. Dragon wannabes. A quick glance at his status window confirmed his fears. Thunderwind drake. Level, Foundation Establishment, Peak. HP, 4000 of 4000. Li Wei, Jiji, stay low, Kai said. These aren't your average birds. Li Wei nodded, his face pale. Why yes, Master Kai. Jiji, however, puffed out his tiny chest. Ha! As if I would cower before such lowly beasts, the spirit tortoise declared as he waddled over to a corner of the boat and plopped down. I shall allow you youngsters the chance to prove yourselves. Consider this a valuable learning experience. With that, Jiji retreated into his shell, leaving only his eyes peeking out. I'm not surprised at the least, Kai shook his head with a smile at the tortoise's antics. Elder Feng stood at the bow of the ark, his face grim as he surveyed the circling drakes. Kai approached him. Elder Feng, Kai said, keeping his voice low. What are our options here? The outer elder's expression was tense. This is unfortunate. While I am at the pseudo-core formation realm, which would typically be enough to handle 3 peak foundation establishment creatures, and aerial battle changes things significantly. Right. Humans aren't exactly built for mid-air combat, and is outnumbered 3-1. What about the Ark? Kai asked. What are its defensive capabilities? Elder Feng shook his head. I'm afraid this vessel was designed for travel, not combat. It has no significant defensive measures. Damn, Kai thought. But I guess that makes sense. Sects probably wouldn't waste resources on defenses for a simple recruitment trip. Talk about bad luck. Chapter 32, so much for protagonist luck. Stay on the boat, Elder Feng commanded as he drew his sword and leapt into the air. The blade glowed with chi, allowing him to stand on it as if it were a flying platform. There it is. The classic flying sword. Kai's eyes widened. I wonder how long it'll take me to learn it. As the Elder met the 3 Thunderwing drakes in the air, the beasts began to circle him. Elder Feng made sure to keep his back to the boat, not letting them get around him. When the first drake dove at him, mouth open wide, Elder Feng didn't even flinch. He raised his hand and a powerful gust of wind slammed into the drake, sending it tumbling backward. The other 2 drakes attacked from opposite sides, trying to catch Elder Feng between them. Lightning crackled around their mouths, building up for a devastating attack. But Elder Feng was ready. He spun in the air, his robes flapping wildly. As the drakes unleashed their lightning strikes, Elder Feng's hands shot out, fingers splayed. 2 brilliant bolts of lightning erupted from his palms, meeting the drake's attacks midair. The beasts shrieked in pain, their scales smoking. They backed away, regrouping. Nice crowd control, Kai thought, watching closely. He's not just defending, he's controlling the battlefield. Elder Feng pressed his advantage. He thrust his palm towards the green drake, unleashing a concentrated blast of wind that slammed into its chest, sending it tumbling backward. The purple drake retaliated, its jaws crackling with electricity as it lunged for Elder Feng's leg. The Elder pivoted midair, narrowly avoiding the bite. In the same motion, he brought his elbow down on the drake's neck, channeling a bolt of lightning through the strike. The beast convulsed, smoke rising from its scales. It's like watching a wizard duel, Kai thought. The blue drake circled around, trying to flank Elder Feng. It inhaled deeply as it began to gather lightning chi. Elder Feng noticed just in time. He raised both hands, forming a swirling vortex of wind between them. As the drake released a stream of lightning, Elder Feng's wind barrier caught the attack, dispersing it harmlessly into the air. Without missing a beat, Elder Feng clasped his hands together. The air around him began to ripple and distort. Suddenly, he threw his arms wide, and a shockwave of pure chi erupted in all directions. The drakes shrieked as the invisible force battered their bodies, sending them reeling. Elder Feng has area of effect attacks to handle multiple enemies, and is using the sky as his arena. Smart, Kai nodded. The green drake, recovering fastest, dove at Elder Feng with its claws extended. The Elder met the attack head-on, his fist crackling with lightning as it collided with the drake's talons. There was a blinding flash and a thunderous boom. When Kai's vision cleared, he saw the drake's front leg hanging limply, its scales blackened and cracked. The purple drake's tail whipped towards the Elder, only for him to catch it barehanded, using the beast's momentum to swing it into its blue companion. Both drakes crashed into each other with a sickening crunch. He's making it look easy. If it was me fighting, I wouldn't last more than a few seconds against even one of these drakes, Kai realized, a chill running down his spine. The gap between chi refining and foundation establishment is big, but the gap between the stages of foundation establishment seem even bigger. A pseudo-core formation cultivator really is on another level. One of the drakes, frustrated, tried to dive past Elder Feng towards the boat. The Elder's eyes widened. He abandoned his offensive, racing to intercept the drake. Wind wall. Elder Feng shouted, throwing both hands forward. A massive barrier of swirling air appeared between the drake and the boat. The drake slammed into the wind wall, roaring in anger. But Elder Feng's quick defense left him vulnerable. The other 2 drakes seized the opportunity, one biting into his shoulder while the other raked its claws across his back. Elder Feng grunted in pain but didn't falter. He maintained the wind wall, protecting the boat even as blood soaked his robes. Damn, Kai thought, his fists clenched. He could have dodged that if he wasn't worried about us. As the battle raged on, the Elder struggled to fend off all 3 drakes while still protecting the boat. His movements were slower, his attacks less powerful, his actions more cautious. He needs help, Kai thought desperately. But what can we do? At our level, would just get in the way. The elder is making a mistake, Shen Yu's voice cut through his thoughts. Kai's ears perked up at this. He moved closer to Shen Yu. What do you mean? Shen Yu turned to look at Kai, his eyes unreadable. For a moment, Kai thought the boy might not answer. Then, to his surprise, Shen Yu spoke. The Thunderwing drakes have a weakness to sound. High-pitched noises disorient them. And how exactly do you know that? Shen Yu shook his head. That's beside the point. We need to help the elder before he gets himself killed trying to protect us. He's deflecting, Kai thought. But he's also right. We need to do something. Making a split-second decision, Kai focused on his hand, channeling his chi. He began to shape the energy. Let's see a circular shape, thin material for better resonance. Kai's brow furrowed in concentration as he molded the chi. Slowly, a translucent gong took shape in his hand. Shen Yu nodded approvingly. I was just going to suggest you do that. Li Wei, who had been watching wide-eyed, finally found his voice. Master, what are you doing? Before Kai could answer, Zizi's muffled voice came from within his shell. Isn't it obvious? He's creating a sonic weapon to exploit the drake's auditory vulnerability. I was going to suggest it myself, but I wanted to see if any of you would figure it out. Kai suppressed a smirk. Nice save, Master Zizi. Pretend you knew all along. With the gong formed, Kai quickly shaped another chi construct, this time a simple hammer. He knew he had to work fast, maintaining multiple chi constructs was taxing, and he could only hold them for a few seconds at most. Usually, that's fine for battle, Kai mused. Quick tripwires or barriers to catch opponents off guard. But this needs to pack punch after punch. Without wasting another moment, Kai brought the hammer down on the gong. A clear, resonant tone rang out, surprisingly loud for its size. The effect on the Thunderwing drakes was immediate and dramatic. The blue-scaled beast was the closest. It recoiled violently at the sound. Its wings suddenly buckled, causing it to drop several feet in the air. It thrashed its head from side to side, eyes unfocused and disoriented. The drake with green-tinged scales let out a high-pitched screech. Its flight pattern became erratic, spiraling awkwardly as it tried to escape the sound. The larger drake with purple markings seemed the least affected. Still, it shook its massive head, momentarily stunned. Elder Feng was also startled by the unexpected sound, but he recovered quickly. His eyes narrowed, recognizing the opportunity Kai had created. With a burst of speed, Elder Feng shot towards the blue drake, the most vulnerable target. Wind and lightning crackled around his outstretched hand. He struck the drake's exposed underbelly, just behind its left foreleg where the scales were thinnest. The impact was devastating. Lightning arced through the drake's body, and a sickening crack echoed as ribs shattered under the force of the blow. The blue drake's eyes rolled back, and it let out an agonized roar. Smoke rising from its scales, the injured drake desperately flapped its wings as it fled from battle. The green and purple drakes, however, shook off their disorientation quickly. Their eyes, now glowing with rage, fixed on Elder Feng. With ear-splitting shrieks, they charged at him simultaneously. It worked better than I expected, Kai thought. But those two recovered fast. And now they look pissed. I need to give the elder another opening. As the gong dissipated, he immediately began forming another one. While he worked, he heard Shen Yu speak up again. I've never seen anyone form chi constructs as easily as you do, the boy commented, a hint of genuine interest in his voice. Kai couldn't help but laugh. Well, being a mortal, I'd be surprised if you had. A moment later, Kai finished shaping the second gong, but that was when he noticed something odd. Shen Yu had moved. The boy was now standing on the opposite side of the boat, as far from Kai as he could get without being obvious about it. What's he up to? Kai wondered. But there was no time to dwell on it. The chi constructs would collapse soon, and he needed to act. Once again, Kai brought the hammer down on the gong. The sound rang out even louder than before. This time, the effect on the Thunderwing drakes was even more pronounced. The green drake, already wounded from Elder Feng's earlier attacks, reacted violently. Its wings seized up, muscles spasming uncontrollably. Unable to maintain its flight, the massive beast began to plummet. It let out a terrified shriek as it fell, its body twisting and turning in a futile attempt to regain control. It quickly plummeted from the sky, its massive body crashing into the forest below. The purple drake, however, had a very different reaction. Its eyes began to glow an angry red, and its movements became erratic. Sparks of electricity danced across its scales as its chi went haywire. Oh crap! It's gone into rage mode. Kai's eyes widened in realization. Does everyone in this world have a berserk button or something? He thought, remembering his encounter with the rogue cultivator. Note to self, kill enemies before they get a chance to power up. Before anyone could react, the enraged drake let out an ear-splitting roar and dove straight at the boat. Time seemed to slow down as Kai assessed the situation. Li Wei was standing closest to the incoming beast. Shen Yu, unsurprisingly, was the farthest away. Zizi was still hiding in his shell. That sneaky bastard, Kai thought, a mixture of admiration and annoyance coloring his thoughts. He could have warned us. At the speed the drake was moving, it would reach them long before Elder Feng could turn around and intercept it. In its berserk state, the beast would likely kill Li Wei before anyone could stop it. Shit, Kai thought, his mind racing. There goes a respawn. Without hesitation, he activated his wind step skill. In a burst of speed, he appeared in front of Li Wei, shoving him backward just as the drake reached them. Master, no! Li Wei cried out, his eyes wide with horror. Kai looked up to see the drake's glowing red eyes and rows of razor-sharp teeth looming overhead. Come on, iron rebound, Kai prayed. Now would be a really good time to... Pain exploded through his body as the drake's jaws clamped down. There was no magical reflection of damage, no last-second save. Just razor-sharp teeth tearing through flesh and bone. The electricity from the bite set every nerve ending on fire. Kai felt his ribs crack like twigs, puncturing lungs and rupturing organs. The drake shook its head violently, and Kai's world became a blur of agony and vertigo. So much for protagonist luck, Kai thought bitterly as darkness began to creep in at the edges of his vision. Guess I'll just have to respawn. As he fell, Kai saw Elder Feng appear behind the beast. The elder shoved his hand right through the drake's back. His fingers came out the other side, sparking with lightning. The drake began convulsing, its jaws loosening just enough for Kai to fall. Kai hit the deck of the boat hard. He could hear Li Wei screaming in master and Zizi's shell clattering as the spirit tortoise finally emerged. As the darkness closed in, the last thing Kai heard was Shen Yu's whisper. Let's see if that was also an illusion. Chapter 33, Reset. Kai opened his eyes to find himself suspended in an endless void. The familiar nothingness surrounded him, just as it had the last time he died. He couldn't feel his body or see any part of himself. It was as if he had become one with the emptiness. Well, this is familiar. At least I know what to expect this time. A glowing message materialized before him, its light the only thing visible in the vast darkness. Congratulations. You have completed the trident. Unlocking new ability. Name, Reset. Description, Reset allows you to respawn back in time. Each prong grants 3 seconds of rewind. As the mark evolves, rewind time may increase. Reset. That's incredibly powerful. And convenient. One of his main concerns had been explaining away his deaths to increasingly powerful cultivators. Though illusion excuse might work on mortals and low-level practitioners, but someone like Elder Feng would be far more skeptical. Looks like I've just unlocked the ultimate get-out-of-awkward-death-free card. No more explaining to suspicious elders why my death illusion felt so real. Sorry, creepy cultivation uncles, this protagonist's not getting kidnapped for your secret experiments anytime soon. Initiating reset in 3, 2, 1. The void began to melt away, reality bleeding back into existence. Kai found himself observing the scene on the boat, but from an out-of-body perspective. He saw his own corpse sprawled on the deck, blood pooling beneath it. Elder Feng stood over the body, his expression unreadable. How unfortunate, the cultivator murmured. He turned to Zizi, who had finally emerged from his shell. Don't worry, little one. I'll take good care of you now. Zizi bristled, his tiny form shaking with anger. Care for me? I don't need anyone to take care of me. Kai wasn't my caretaker, he was my friend. Kai's non-existent eyes narrowed. My body's not even cold, and the elder is already trying to claim Gigi. But at least the little guy is loyal. His gaze shifted to Xianxia. The boy was frowning at Kai's corpse, a look of confusion and disappointment. It was as if he had expected Kai to spring back to life at any moment. What do you know, Xianxia? Before he could ponder further, the scene began to rewind. It was like watching a video in reverse, everything moving backwards at high speed. The rewinding slowed, then stopped completely. Kai found himself looking at a frozen tableau of the boat mere seconds before his death. He saw himself, hands outstretched, in the process of crafting a second qigong. Xianxia was frozen mid-step, clearly in the act of distancing himself from the impending danger. Sneaky bastard, Kai thought. He knew what was coming, but how? Has he experienced this before? If so, was I there in the previous timeline? Or is he actually reincarnated with some kind of precognitive ability? Hell, for all I know, he could have his own system. Kai shook the thoughts out of his non-existent head as he focused on the plan. Time had rewound to just after he had used the first sound attack on the Drakes. He had time to save Li Wei and himself. 3, 2, 1. Kai felt a pulling sensation, as if his consciousness was being sucked into his body. The world blurred, then snapped back into focus. He was back in his body, hands still forming the qigong. Without missing a beat, Kai called out, Li Wei. Come here, quickly. Li Wei's head snapped towards him, eyes wide with confusion. Master. Kai kept his focus on the forming gong. Move with me, he instructed, stepping sideways towards the far end of the boat. Li Wei hurried to keep pace, stumbling slightly as he moved. What's happening? Just stay close, Kai muttered, his eyes never leaving the qi construct in his hands. They shuffled across the deck, the half-formed gong floating between Kai's palms. As they reached the far side of the boat, they found themselves standing next to Xianxia, who regarded them with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. Sorry, not so mysterious, boy. We are all going to survive this time. Gigi, Kai called out. I need you to let Li Wei use your shell as a shield. The tiny tortoise puffed up. Excuse me. I am not some common piece of armor to be passed around. Kai fixed him with a stern look. Gigi, please. It could save his life. Grumbling, Gigi relented. Fine, fine. But only because you asked so nicely. He hopped into Li Wei's outstretched hands. Li Wei held the shell-covered spirit beast like a small shield. It wasn't much, barely the size of a dinner plate, but Kai knew it could deflect a critical blow if needed. Now for the encore, Kai thought, focusing on the qigong he had just created. With a sharp movement, he struck it. The clear, resonant tone rang out even louder than before. The effect on the Thunderwing Drakes was immediate and dramatic. The Green Drake, already wounded from Elder Feng's earlier attacks, reacted violently. Its wings seized up, muscles spasming uncontrollably. Unable to maintain flight, the massive beast began to plummet. It let out a terrified shriek as it fell, its body twisting and turning in a futile attempt to regain control. Within seconds, it had disappeared from view, crashing into the forest below. The purple drake, however, had a very different reaction. Its eyes began to glow an angry red, and its movements became erratic. Sparks of electricity danced across its scales as its qi went haywire. Here we go again, Kai thought, bracing himself. Berserk mode activated. The enraged drake let out an ear-splitting roar and dove straight for the boat. But this time, Kai was ready. He, Li Wei, and Xianxia were positioned as far from the drake's trajectory as possible. Elder Feng, noticing the beast's charge, abandoned his offensive stance and raced to intercept it. Lightning crackled around his hands as he positioned himself between the drake and the boat. The drake's jaws snapped shut mere inches from the boat's railing. In the same instant, Elder Feng's lightning fist punched clean through the beast's chest. The drake's roar turned into a gurgle as electricity coursed through its body. With a final, violent spasm, the Thunderwing Drake went limp. Its massive form crashed onto the deck of the boat, causing the entire vessel to rock precariously. For a moment, everyone stood frozen, the sudden silence almost deafening after the chaos of battle. Then Elder Feng turned to face them, his robe singed and torn but a triumphant smile on his face. "Well done, young Kai," he said, nodding approvingly. "That was quick thinking with the sound attack. And I see you made sure to protect your companions as well. Very commendable." "Thank you, Elder Feng," Kai bowed slightly. "I'm just glad we all made it through safely." "Yeah, all of us except me the first time around," Kai thought bitterly. "And you didn't seem too broken up about that, did you?" Outwardly, he maintained his polite demeanor. "Your combat skills are truly impressive, Elder. We would have been lost without your protection." Elder Feng waved off the compliment, though Kai noticed the pleased glint in his eyes. "It was nothing. Protecting promising young cultivators is part of my duty as an outer elder." "Sure it is," Kai thought. "Along with snatching up rare spirit beasts when the opportunity presents itself." Li Wei, still clutching Gigi like a shield, stepped forward. That was incredible, Elder Feng. And Master Kai, your quick thinking saved us all." Gigi squirmed in Li Wei's grasp. Yes, everyone's very impressed. Now would you mind putting me down? I am not a handbag." Li Wei quickly set the spirit beast down, looking sheepish. "Sorry, Master Gigi. And thank you for protecting me." Gigi puffed up his tiny chest. "Well, of course. Someone has to look after you youngsters." As the other continued their conversation, a blue screen appeared before Kai. "Thunderwing Drake eliminated. Total XP earned 8,000. Your share, 2,000 XP. Chi condensation has reached level 4. You have gained 50 XP. Her party XP distribution," Kai mused, eyeing the numbers. "Just like in an MMO. I guess the system considers Elder Feng part of our party for this fight." His gaze drifted to the outer elder, who was busy talking to Shen Yu. "He doesn't have a leveling system like mine. All that extra XP just going to waste. You know, system, if you're feeling generous, you could always redistribute that unclaimed XP my way. No need to let it disappear into the void." Unfortunately, the system remained stubbornly silent on the matter. Kai sighed. "Worth a shot, I suppose. Still, 2,000 XP isn't bad for a single encounter. Especially one where I technically died. Wait, 2,000 XP. That's enough to..." His thoughts were cut short as a sudden surge of energy coursed through his body. The qi in his dantian began to churn and expand, breaking through an invisible barrier. Kai felt his meridians widening to accommodate the increased flow of energy. A soft golden glow emanated from his skin, lasting only a few seconds but impossible to miss. When it faded, Kai could feel the difference. His qi was denser, more potent, and he had a greater reservoir to draw from. "Level up. You are now level 8. The sudden breakthrough didn't go unnoticed. Elder Feng's eyebrows shot up in surprise, his gaze sharpening as he studied Kai intently. Li Wei's mouth fell open in shock, while Gigi stopped mid-rant, his tiny eyes widening at Kai. Even Shen Yu, usually so impassive, couldn't hide his astonishment. The boy's eyes narrowed, a calculating look replacing his initial surprise. "Young Kai," Elder Feng said slowly, "did you just advance a stage in your cultivation?" Kai smiled awkwardly, acutely aware of all the attention focused on him. "Ah, yes," he replied, trying to sound casual. "I was close to breaking through anyway. The intensity of the battle must have given me that final push I needed. Close to breaking through from 0 to 2,000 XP in an instant, sure," Kai thought wryly. "But they don't need to know that. Most impressive. It's rare to see someone advance so quickly, especially right after such an intense battle. You truly are full of surprises, young Kai." Li Wei looked at Kai with awe. "That's amazing, Master. To think you could break through again so quickly." Gigi, not to be outdone, puffed up. "Well, of course he did. He's my disciple, after all. I knew he had it in him all along." Kai suppressed a chuckle at the spirit beast's cline. "Sure you did, Gigi. Sure you did." As the others continued to express their amazement, Kai's eyes drifted to his right wrist. The familiar trident mark was there, but something had changed. Where before there had been 3 vibrant red prongs, now one had turned a deep, inky black. Interesting, Kai thought, relief washing over him. So, it only used up 1 pron. That's much better than I expected. He flexed his wrist slightly, studying the mark. I was worried reset might use all 3 prons at once. That would have made it a last resort ability at best. But this I can work with. Anyways, let's see what my stats are like now. Name, Kai Thorn. XP, 50 of 4000. Level, 8. Chi, 250 of 250. Strength, 60. Agility, 63. Endurance, 62. Intelligence, 30. Wisdom, 29. Titles: Novice Instructor. Elemental Affinities: Lightning, 20%. Skills: Chi Condensation, Level 4. Basic Cultivation Technique, Level 3. Unarmed Combat, Level 2. Deception, Level 4. Iron Skin, Level 3. Swift Wind Step, Level 4. Flame Palm Strike, Level 3. Mental Fortitude, Passive. Spirit Beast Communication, Level 1. Chi Concealment, Level 1. Chi Detection, Level 1. Iron Rebound, Level 1. 4000 XP. That's a lot. I can't exactly expect to kill my way to the next breakthrough. Not unless I want to become the sect's resident psychopath. But if things in the sect are anything like the novels I've read, a small smoke played at the corner of his lips. Well, I'll probably face plenty of trials there. And if I'm lucky, there might be quests that let me level up faster. Or maybe my growth is going to slow to a snail's pace now. No, make that a tortoise's pace. With that thought, his gaze drifted to Gigi, who was currently perched on Li Wei's head, giving him advice on what to do when face to face with a dragon. Now listen closely, my naive disciple. When confronted by a dragon, the first thing you must do is compliment its scales. Dragons are vain creatures, you see. A well-placed compliment can mean the difference between being eaten and being well, only slightly singed. Li Wei's brow furrowed in confusion. Gigi. Where did this talk of dragons come from? I thought we were discussing the Azure Sky Sect trials. Gigi waved a tiny claw dismissively. Trials, dragons, it's all the same in the grand scheme of things. Now, as I was saying, after the compliment. After? Li Wei asked, still bewildered but deciding to humor the spirit beast. Why, you run, of course. Gigi declared. Run as fast as your legs can carry you. Unless you're me, in which case you stand your ground and challenge the dragon to a battle of wits. I once outsmarted a whole family of celestial dragons, you know. They still speak of it in the heavenly realms to this day. Li Wei nodded slowly, clearly unsure how to respond to this unexpected tangent. IOC. Thank you for the advice. I'll keep it in mind if I ever encounter a dragon. Kai shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips as he listened to the tortoise continue to ramble. Who knows? Maybe someday that random bit of dragon advice will come in handy. In this world, anything seems possible. Chapter 34, I couldn't even take care of my friend when he needed me most. From within the safety of his shell, Gigi peeked out at the chaotic scene unfolding before him. His eyes widened as he watched Kai conjure a translucent gong out of pure chi. The young human's ability to manipulate energy into solid constructs never ceased to amaze the spirit tortoise. How does he do that? Gigi wondered. I've never seen anyone shape chi so easily, not even Mother could do that. As impressive as Kai's skill was, it paled in comparison to the terror inspired by the 3 massive thunderwing drakes circling above. Just the aura emanating from the Foundation establishment beasts made Gigi's shell quiver. If not for the life-saving treasure his mother had given him, he never would have dared venture so far from the safety of the forest. Being a spirit beast is terrifying, Gigi lamented. Humans want to hunt or tame us, while other beasts want to devour us to increase their power. Why can't the world just be peaceful? It would be so nice to relax all day without worrying about being eaten or captured. But almost as quickly as the thought formed, he shook his head. No, peaceful is boring. I don't like boring. That's why I left home with Kai in the first place. I wanted fun and adventure. His inner voice took on a slightly whiny tone. I just wish fun didn't always come with so much danger. As Kai brought the chi hammer down on the gong, a resonant tone rang out across the sky. The effect on the thunderwing drakes was immediate and dramatic. The beast recoiled, their wings faltering as the sound disoriented them. Amazing. Such a simple trick, yet so effective against Foundation establishment creatures. I wonder if he'd teach me how to do that, Xixi mused. Then he caught himself. But wait, I can't just ask him outright. I have an image to maintain. If they realize I'm not the wise, all-knowing spirit beast I pretend to be, they'll never accept me as their master. Xixi's mind raced through various scenarios, trying to come up with the perfect plan. Finally, he settled on an idea that seemed foolproof. I've got it. I'll tell Kai I want to observe his technique and offer feedback. That way, he'll have to show me how it's done and explain the process. Then I can pretend to correct him, maintaining my wise facade while secretly learning the skill. Xixi congratulated himself on his cunning plan, already imagining all the amazing things he could create with chi constructs. I could make a comfy pillow to nap on, or a little parasol for shade, maybe even. His daydreaming was cut short by a blur of motion. Kai vanished from where he'd been standing, reappearing in front of Li Wei just as the terrifying purple drake duffed towards the boat. In a split second, Kai shoved the former bandit out of harm's way. Xixi's eyes went wide with horror as the drake's massive jaws clamped down on Kai's body. Blood sprayed across the deck as the beast's teeth tore through flesh and bone. No. Xixi cried out, his head emerging fully from his shell for the first time since the battle began. He watched helplessly as Kai's limp form fell to the deck with a sickening thud. Time seemed to stand still. The world around Xixi faded away as memories of his past flooded his mind. He remembered his early days, alone and afraid. He had never known his true parents, left to fend for himself in a hostile world. It was the ancient spirit tree who had taken pity on him, raising him as her own. But even under her protection, Xixi had always felt isolated. The other spirit beasts kept a distance, too afraid of angering his powerful foster mother to risk befriending him. And humans? Xixi shuddered at the memories. Every encounter with cultivators had ended the same way. They either tried to hunt him for his valuable spirit beast core or attempted to subjugate him as a tamed companion. A single tear rolled down Xixi's scaly cheek as he gazed at Kai's broken body. Why? He thought bitterly. Why did it have to be him? Unlike the others, Kai had been different. He had saved Xixi from those rogue cultivators, even though he had no obligation to do so. He had invited Xixi to travel with them, treating him as an equal rather than a prize to be won. And most remarkably, Kai hadn't been intimidated by Xixi's foster mother. He had accepted the spirit tortoise for who he was, flaws and all. He was my friend, Xixi realized. My first real friend. Don't worry, little one, Elder Feng's voice cut through Xixi's grief. I'll take good care of you now. Care for me. Xixi's normally high-pitched voice came out as a low growl. His eyes narrowed as he glared at the elder. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Kai wasn't my caretaker, he was my friend. Elder Feng's brow furrowed. I understand you're upset, but... You understand nothing. Xixi snapped. His tiny body began to glow with a fierce golden light. Kai was the first person to treat me like an equal, like a true companion. And now he's gone because you couldn't protect us. The spirit tortoise's gaze burned with an intensity that made even the pseudo-core formation cultivator take a step back. A golden leaf, the life-saving treasure gifted to him by his foster mother, appeared in Xixi's clawed hand. This is all my fault, Xixi thought, his anger giving way to crushing guilt. I should have used the leaf immediately. I shouldn't have hidden in my shell like a coward. Listen here, Xixi said, his voice quavering. I am Xixi, son of the ancient spirit tree. I've lived for 100 years and I've never felt as useless as I do right now. The golden leaf in Xixi's hand began to pulse with energy, but it was erratic, matching the spirit beast's emotions. Elder Feng's eyes widened as he sensed the immense, unstable power contained within the small talisman. Young spirit beast, Elder Feng said, his voice now tinged with concern, please, calm yourself. This power. Calm. Xixi scoffed, tears welling in his eyes. How can it be calm? I could have saved him. I had this the whole time, and I did nothing. He raised the golden leaf, his claws trembling. One touch of this, and even a pseudo-core formation cultivator like you wouldn't stand a chance against my mother's nascent soul attack. But I was too scared to use it when it mattered. Gigi's fierce expression crumbled, replaced by one of anguish and self-loathing. I hid in my shell while Kai fought. I watched as that drake attacked him, and I did nothing. What kind of friend am I? His grip on the golden leaf tightened, but not with the intent to use it. Instead, it was as if he was clinging to it for comfort. I'm no mighty spirit beast. I'm just a coward who pretends to be wise. Kai deserved a better friend than me. I should have been braver. I should have fought alongside him. Maybe then. The leaf's golden glow began to fade as Gigi's voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. The tortoise looked up at Elder Feng, his eyes filled with a mixture of defiance and despair. So don't tell me you'll take care of me, Gigi said softly. I don't deserve it. I couldn't even take care of my friend when he needed me most. Chapter 35, Arriving at the Sect. As the flying boat glided through the air, Kai stood at the bow, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind whipped through his hair, carrying the scent of mountain air and something else, something mystical. In the distance, a magnificent structure began to take shape, growing larger with each passing moment. So this is the Azure Sky Sect, it's everything I imagined it to be. The sect sprawled across a series of mountain peaks, connected by impossibly thin bridges that seemed to defy gravity. Pagodas with curved roofs of deep blue tiles reached towards the sky, their eaves adorned with carvings of blue and white dragons. Waterfalls cascaded down the mountainsides, their mist creating rainbows in the sunlight. At the highest peak stood a grand palace, its golden roof gleaming like a beacon. It really does seem like something out of a fantasy novel. Impressive, isn't it? Elder Feng's voice broke through Kai's thoughts. Kai nodded, not taking his eyes off the sight before him. It's a magnificent. Li Wei stumbled to the railing, his eyes wide. I've never seen anything like it. Master, is this what all sects look like? Kai chuckled. I wouldn't know, Li Wei. This is my first time seeing one too. Though I've seen plenty in games and anime, he added silently. But nothing quite compares to the real thing. Gigi, perched on Li Wei's head, puffed out his chest. Bah! You should have seen the celestial tortoise palace in the heavenly realms. Now that was impressive. This is adequate, I suppose. Kai raised an eyebrow at the spirit beast. Oh? And when exactly did you visit this celestial tortoise palace? Gigi's eyes darted back and forth. Well, you see, it was a very long time ago. Yes, that's it. So long ago that the details are a bit fuzzy. But trust me, it was magnificent. As they drew closer, Kai noticed formations etched into the mountains. Defensive arrays, he realized. Probably designed to keep out intruders and contain the sect's chi. The boat began its descent, aiming for a large plateau near the base of the central mountain. As they approached, Kai's eyes widened at the sight before him. The plateau was teeming with people, a sea of faces and colorful roads stretching as far as he could see. Ah, there are the other outer elders with their recruits, Elder Feng said, a note of tension in his voice. We are a bit late. Late to an important event with this many people. That's never good in these kinds of stories, Kai thought. As their boat touched down on the edge of the plateau, Kai did a quick head count. There had to be at least a few hundred potential recruits, if not more, each accompanied by their respective outer elders. The chatter of the crowd washed over them, a mix of excited whispers and nervous murmurs. From within the crowd, several voices rose above the rest, directed at Elder Feng. Well, look who finally decided to join us. If you were any later, Feng, we might have started without you. Elder Feng straightened his robes, putting on a dignified air as he stepped off the boat. My apologies for the delay, fellow elders. We encountered some unexpected challenges on our journey. A bald elder with a thick black beard and black eyes scoffed. Challenges? What kind of challenges could possibly delay an outer elder of the Azure Sky Sect? Elder Feng's expression tightened slightly. We were attacked by a group of Thunderwing Drakes. Thunderwing Drakes, another elder, a woman with gray hair, asked incredulously. And all your recruits survived? Elder Feng nodded, a hint of pride creeping into his voice. Indeed. Thanks in no small part to the quick thinking of one of my recruits. Here we go, Kai thought, bracing himself for the attention he knew was coming. As if on cue, the other outer elders began boasting about their own recruits. Well, that's certainly impressive, said the bald elder. But let me introduce you to Xuanxia. He gestured to a girl with long black hair and pale skin. She's already reached the 3rd stage of qi refining, and she's only 15. 3rd stage at 15. Not bad, Kai mused. But not exactly earth-shattering either. The gray-haired woman stepped forward. And this is Jia Jian, she said, pointing to a muscular young man. He may be a mortal, but he's already mastered 3 different martial art styles. I expect great things from him once he begins cultivating. Martial arts prodigy, huh? Classic trope. Wonder how he'll stack up once qi gets involved. As the introductions continued, Kai noticed a pattern. Most of the recruits were either mortals or in the early stages of qi refining. The highest he heard mentioned was a boy named Wu Fen, who had reached the 5th stage. Interesting, Kai thought. I'm already ahead of the curve. But this can't be all of it. For a sect as big as the Azure Sky sect, there should be some geniuses. Where are the arrogant young masters? Finally, Elder Fen cleared his throat. Allow me to introduce my own recruits. This is Li Wei, he's at the 3rd stage of qi refining. Li Wei bowed nervously, his face flushed with embarrassment at the sudden attention. And this, Elder Fen continued, a hint of smugness in his voice, is Kai Thorn. He's the one who devised the strategy that saved us from the Thunderwind Drakes. Kai has already reached the 8th stage of qi refining. A shocked silence fell over the gathered elders and recruits. Kai could feel dozens of eyes boring into him, filled with disbelief, suspicion, and in some cases, fear. 8th stage, the bald elder sputtered. That's impossible. How could a mere mortal reach such a level without joining a sect? The grey-haired woman narrowed her eyes. Did you perhaps acquire some sort of treasure, young man? A cultivation manual or a rare herb, perhaps? No, elder, Kai replied. I simply practiced a lot. Great answer, he chided himself. Very convincing. They'll definitely believe that. The other recruits were whispering among themselves now, casting furtive glances in Kai's direction. He could see the uncertainty and worry in their eyes. They are probably wondering how they can compete with someone like me, Kai realized. I need to be careful. Making enemies before the trials even begin would be a bad move. Elder Feng cleared his throat, continuing his introductions. And lastly, this is Shen Yu. He gestured to the calm-faced boy. A remarkable talent who broke through to qi refining on his first attempt. The other outer elder's eyebrows shot up in surprise. On his first attempt, the bald elder asked. That's quite unusual. The grey-haired woman peered at Shen Yu closely. Indeed. Almost as unusual as reaching the 8th stage of qi refining without a sect. Her gaze flicked between Shen Yu and Kai, suspicion evident in her eyes. Shen Yu merely bowed politely, his face betraying no emotion. I was fortunate to receive good guidance, he said simply. Just then, another outer elder, a portly man with a jovial face, spoke up. Well, Fen, you certainly brought an interesting group this year. His eyes twinkled mischievously. But tell me, have you picked up another spirit beast? Elder Feng's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Ah, you must be referring to. Before he could finish, Zizi's voice rang out. Another spirit beast. I'll have you know, I am no mere beast. I am Zizi, the great and powerful spirit tortoise of the Celestial. The spirit beast is with the boy, Elder Feng interrupted hastily, gesturing towards Kai. Kai nodded, trying to keep a straight face. Yes, Zizi is my companion. The portly elder chuckled. A spirited little thing, isn't he? And quite rare too, if I'm not mistaken. Zizi puffed up with pride. Of course I'm rare. I'm one of a kind, I'll have you know. Kai could see the other outer elders eyeing Zizi. He already felt the start of a headache coming on. Looks like Elder Feng isn't the only one interested in acquiring. The grey-haired woman's gaze lingered on Zizi for a moment before returning to Kai. First an 8-stage chi refining cultivator and now a rare spirit beast. You've certainly found some interesting recruits this time, Fen. Elder Feng's smile remained fixed in place, but Kai could sense a hint of tension in his voice as he replied, indeed. The Misty Waterfall Village proved to be quite the source of talent this year. As the introductions continued, Kai noticed several of the outer elders casting envious glances at Elder Feng. Their eyes darted between Kai, Shenyu, and Jiji, a mix of jealousy and calculation in their gazes. The portly elder chuckled, elbowing Elder Fen playfully. Well, Fen. Looks like you might be up for the big reward this year, eh? The sect leader will be impressed with this batch. Of course there's a reward system, Kai thought. It's the perfect way to motivate outer elders to scout for talent. And let's be honest, it explains why Elder Feng was so keen on protecting us. To him, we are basically valuable merchandise. Elder Feng tried to look modest, but Kai could see the gleam of satisfaction in his eyes. Now, he said. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. The trials haven't even begun yet. The bald elder shook his head, a sly grin on his face. I wouldn't count your spirit stones just yet, Fen. I've heard that Elder Ju managed to recruit the young masters from the Sun and Moon clans this year. A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd at this news. Ah, there it is, Kai thought, suppressing a smirk. I was wondering when the young master archetypes would show up. As if summoned by the mention of their names, the crowd suddenly parted. A tall elder strode through the gap, flanked by two young men. Even at a glance, Kai could tell these were the young master types he'd read about in countless stories. The first young man swaggered forward, his head held high and a cocky grin on his face. His robes were made of the finest silk, embroidered with golden suns. He scanned the crowd with an air of superiority, as if daring anyone to meet his gaze. Great, Kai thought. The brash, hot-headed type. Bet he's got a short temper to match that ego. The second young man moved with a more measured grace. His robes, adorned with silver crescent moons, were just as fine as his companions. But where the first young man's eyes blazed with barely contained arrogance, this one's gaze was cool and calculating. And there's the calm, cunning one, Kai noted. Probably thinks he's 3 steps ahead of everyone else. Elder Ju stepped forward, his voice booming across the plateau. Our Elder Feng, you've finally arrived. Let me introduce you to my recruits, young Master Sun Jun of the Sun Clan and young Master Lu Chen of the Moon Clan. Both these boys have reached the 8th stage of chi refining. The elder paused, clearly expecting gasps of amazement or murmurs of awe. Instead, he was met with an awkward silence. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, glancing between the new arrivals and Kai. Sun Jun's cocky grin faltered slightly. What's wrong with you people? He demanded. Didn't you hear? We are at the 8th stage of chi refining. Lu Chen remained silent, but his eyes narrowed as he scanned the crowd, sensing that something was off. The gray-haired woman cleared her throat. Ah, yes. Most impressive, young masters. However, it seems you're not the only ones to reach such a level. Elder Feng's recruit, Kai Thorn, he too has reached the 8th stage of chi refining. Sun Jun's jaw dropped. What? That's impossible. He looks like some nobody from a backwater village. How can he be at the same level as us? Before Kai could respond, Zizi's voice rang out. Nobody. Backwater village. How do you insult my disciple, you arrogant pup? Oh no, Kai thought, inwardly facepalming. Zizi, please don't. But the spirit tortoise was just getting started. Let me tell you something, you silk-robed peacock. My disciple Kai is a once-in-a-millennium talent. He's mastered techniques that would make your ancestors weep with envy. Kai tried to keep his face neutral, but he could feel a headache coming on. Zizi, we talked about this. You're not my master, and I definitely haven't mastered any ancient, envious techniques. Zizi, oblivious to Kai's internal distress, continued his tirade. Why, in my younger days, I trained countless prodigies who went on to become immortals. And let me tell you, none of them showed half the potential of my dear disciple Kai. Sun Jun's face turned an interesting shade of purple. You dare? Do you know who I am? A loudmouthed braggart with more pride than sense, that's who you are. Zizi retorted. Lu Chen's calm facade cracked slightly, a flicker of amusement crossing his face before he quickly suppressed it. "How interesting," he said, his voice tight. "And how did this village boy manage such a feat?" "Hard work and determination, young Master Lo." "Nothing more," Kai smiled as he stepped forward, trying to salvage the situation. He gently patted Gigi's shell. "And perhaps a bit of an enthusiastic encouragement from my spirited companion here." Sun Jian's face turned red with anger. "Hard work? Don't make me laugh. You must have cheated somehow. There's no way a commoner could match us." Lu Chen placed a hand on Sun Jian's shoulder, restraining him. "Calm yourself, brother," he said softly. But Kai could see the calculation in Lu Chen's eyes as he studied him. "We'll have plenty of time to test this village prodigy during the trials." Elder Ju looked like he had swallowed something sour. His eyes darted between Kai and his prized recruits, clearly recalculating his chances for that reward. "Yes, well," Elder Ju said, forcing a smile. "The more talented recruits, the better for Azure Sky Sect, wouldn't you agree, Fen?" Elder Feng nodded, but Kai could see the smugness in his eyes. "Indeed, Ju. May the best recruits win." As the crowd began to disperse, Kai caught Li Wei's worried glance. "Master Kai," Li Wei whispered. "I think you might have made some powerful enemies." Kai sighed, watching as Sun Jian shot him a venomous glare while Lu Chen whispered something to Elder Ju. "Yeah," he said. "Somehow, I'm not surprised. Welcome to the Azure Sky Sect, I guess." He glanced at Shen Yu, wondering how the mysterious boy was reacting to all this. To his surprise, Shen Yu caught his eye and gave him the slightest of nods, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Great," Kai thought sarcastically. The calm, mysterious one finds this amusing. That's never a good sign. Well, at least things are starting to feel more like a proper Xianxia story. Arrogant young masters, check. Deadly rivalries before the trials even begin, check. Now all we need is a hidden big bad and maybe a love interest or two, and we'll have the full set. Now, my dear disciple," Gigi said, misinterpreting Kai's expression, "there's no need to worry. With my guidance and your talent, we'll have this sect eating out of our hands in no time. Why, I remember when I advised the Jade Emperor himself on matters of cultivation. It all started when..."